If you've recently experienced a drop in sales or you're just hitting a plateau with your growth, there are usually a number of key culprits behind this, but a lot of places that people often forget to look. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what you can do to diagnose a drop in sales and how you can go about overcoming those bottlenecks to skyrocket your growth. So let's dive in.
Okay, so one of the first things I like to do if we're seeing any kind of drop in sales or we've hit a plateau in sales is I like to look at the conversion rate by traffic source to try and identify where there may be potential outliers or changes. So let's say, for example, we have seen a loss of sales in Q3 of this year. So what I would generally do is look back at the period where we had growth and better sales and compare those two periods. So if we have a look at an example here in analytics, what we'll want to do is come to the reports tab in GA4. We can then go under acquisition and traffic acquisition, and this is going to show us our statistics broken down by the different acquisition channels. So right now I've got this set to default channel group, but you can also filter this down to specific referral channels. If you're using UTM parameters, you'll be able to drill down into those specific campaigns as well. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to find where are the biggest differences in terms of our conversions compared to the previous period. Okay, so what I'm really going to be looking for here is those outliers. So for example, you'll see a channel here where we've had an 82% reduction in our conversion rate for the previous period. Now, it's also worth saying that you do have to look at the overall numbers as well. You'll see here that we had significantly less traffic from this channel in the previous period. So that kind of data, we do have to take that with a pinch of salt. So the next biggest one where we have actually got a comparable amount of data in terms of traffic, if we look at the sessions across both periods, but there has been a significant reduction in our overall conversions. So this is a channel that we may want to be looking at in terms of organic search, and we'll come back to organic search toward the end of this video. So make sure you stick around for that, because I'm going to show you how even though you might be seeing an increase in traffic, there may be some very critical reasons that you have actually seen a drop in sales from organic. So we will come back to that. So once you've started to identify a few standout culprits in terms of channels, one of the things we recommend to all of the clients we work with is to set up either a weekly or monthly scorecard where you can start tracking your data in terms of your top level business metrics, to your paid media metrics, to your SEO metrics, and being able to track that month on month, but most importantly, keeping a log of any of the key changes that you have been making. That way, you've got date stamps of any events that have happened, whether that be things that you've changed on the website, whether it be changes that you've made to your marketing campaigns, whether it be changes that you've made to your pricing. So if you are seeing subsequent drops in certain areas, whether that be leads generated, whether it be sales generated, you can then look back at those dates and then deep dive into those data points within analytics to identify if that is the culprit. So if you don't have a scorecard right now, I would highly recommend getting one set up for your business. I will link to our template in the description below this video, and you can create this and turn it into your own. This is obviously going to look different for every business depending what your business model is, but the main practice you want to keep is having a weekly, depending on the amount of sales, the amount of volume you're doing, either a weekly or monthly scorecard where you can monitor all of these trends over time, but most importantly, to keep date stamps and records in terms of when certain changes are being made, so you can then draw the correlation between those events and any subsequent either increase or decrease in sales. Now, if you're looking at this data and you can't find any clear culprit in terms of a particular channel or in terms of a particular event that has caused this loss in sales, then we're going to move on to phase 2. And this comes down to analyzing market conditions and also the competitive landscape. I'm going to link to another video I did recently on competitor analysis, so be sure to check out after this video. But one of the things I'm mentioning there is about doing an audience attention analysis and using using ad libraries on platforms like Meta, LinkedIn, Google to have a look at some of the ads that your competitors are running. So you can search by specific companies. You can also search for ads being run in specific industries. So maybe there's even competitors you don't know you have. And then looking at the kind of offers they're presenting, the kind of way they're positioning their business, because you have to bear in mind that if they are targeting your audience as well, this is the kind of thing your potential customers are subject to every day. So if you realize they're making credible offers or they have incredible social proof that you just can't compete with, you might need to change the approach you have. You might need to change the offer you are making. So often we speak to businesses who have had, amazing growth, and then a new competitor comes on the scene, or maybe an existing competitor, but they've completely changed their offer, which has now just blown this other company out of the water, right? So it's really important, even if this is a competitor you're maybe not aware of, just looking at the ad libraries in your industry and really getting a good pulse on what are the offers that are being made. Are we even still relevant? This is such an important yet overlooked element. A great example of this is like these mattress companies, right? That came on the scenes, like Simba and Casper mattresses, like some of the first mattress companies to offer these crazy guarantees, like a 200 night better sleep guarantee, right? Where it's like, we're going to deliver this mattress to your door. You can sleep on it for 200 nights. And if you're not absolutely blown away, we'll refund you every penny and we'll cover all of the shipping costs to come and pick it up from your home. It's really difficult to say no to that. So for all these other mattress companies out there that didn't have those kind of guarantees, they're just going to be getting absolutely annihilated by these kind of offers that are being put out into the market. It might even be just a gradual change over time where just the level of competitors, maybe the level of design on some of your competitors' websites. We see this a lot in certain industries where maybe the kind of level of design, the level of web design hasn't really changed much, but over time, competitors have started updating their websites. And even though you've been able to get away with this old antiquated website for a long time and you've been experiencing amazing growth, there is going to come a time where the playing field, the bar is raised, that playing field is no longer level, and now you need to step up to the level of your competitors because people are naturally going to do their due diligence. So whilst something might have always worked for you in the past, you really have to be keeping tabs on this stuff. The other thing I like to do is something I call the Google test, where you literally just go onto Google and you type in whatever your product or service is, and you just look at the listings on there. Again, look at the way your competitors are packaging their offer, the way they're presenting it, and just ask yourself honestly, can we compete with this? And if not, what can we change to make ourselves more competitive, to make ourselves more attractive? Maybe there are case studies, testimonials, reviews that you have that you're just not shouting about that your competitors are right now. The next thing that is absolutely critical to do is to Google either your brand name or just your industry and have a look in things like public forums at the kind of things people are saying, even media publications. Has there been negative press within your industry? Have there been negative reviews about your brand? Huel is a really great example of a company that really has their hand on the pulse when it comes to kind of public discourse. So whenever you type in anything to do with Huel, you'll normally find Reddit answers within page 1 of Google. And sometimes this is in Huel's own subreddit, but other times it might be in just general health subreddits or wellness subreddits. So for example, something that's had a lot of talking points recently is Huel being an ultra processed food, right? This is something that's brought up a lot on podcasts at the moment, on things like Diary of a CEO and things like that. So what Huel do is they find these answers, these questions that are being asked in Reddit, like this: since Huel would be classified as a UPF, is it bad for you? They then actually make blogs on their own website to hopefully outrank those Reddit answers. But even if they can't outrank the Reddit answers, they have their own team all over these things, commenting, moderating, feeding back, answering questions. You'll see here, there's someone's asked, what's the difference between Huel 3 and black? They've got one of their people who's straight on this immediately. So they really keep their finger on the pulse of these things. And not only are they engaging in these forums, giving value, helping people to understand the differences between certain products, but they are also responding to, and when they see questions being asked in these forums, they're creating their own content around that, so they have the ability to rank. This is also something we suggest doing if your brand's had any kind of negative press, negative reviews. Instead of hiding about it, make content about it to publicly address it, because if people find it, they will Google it. They will do their due diligence. Don't just hide from the truth and bury your head in the sand like so many brands do. This can be such a damaging thing. So it's really important you're owning these things. Because, you know, at the end of the day, what would you rather happen? Would you rather somebody end up in these forums and just things getting out of control? Or would you rather be the company to have your own blog addressing these points? Now, that doesn't mean people are still going to read this, but at least you're giving yourself the ability to answer these questions yourself. Now, the final piece here on market conditions is to also be aware of just general changes in kind of consumer trends or consumer behavior. So if you're in the B2B space, let's say you're selling services, for example, a really good example of this is going to be with the advent of platforms like Fiverr or freelancer.com, or the kind of advent of the gig economy, whereby, you know, it's so easy for people to go onto these platforms now and to get a huge range of services at a very, very low cost for absolutely minimal friction, right? They can go on there, they can pay for a service, they can cancel it whenever they want. It's very, very easy to do. So it's really important to be looking on those kind of platforms, seeing what the kind of offering is on there. And this doesn't mean that, you know, if you are seeing a big rise in your service on those platforms, it doesn't mean you need to just cave into that and be on those platforms. But what it maybe means is that the way you position your brand, your business, your services, you need to find new ways to differentiate and to show who you are for and who you are not for. Another great example of this is in the graphic design space, right? If we look at graphic design companies now, the main thing that comes up is all of these kind of monthly flat fee graphic design companies. So whereas before this might be dominated by graphic design agencies, all of the listings you're seeing now of these flat fee design companies where you pay them a set monthly price and you can get unlimited designs. Now, that doesn't mean people still won't work with project-based graphic design agencies who they're going to pay huge fees to. But there is a very specific audience that will want to use the unlimited graphic design companies versus the audience who may want to use the more bespoke graphic design companies. And that's where it becomes really important that you're kind of recognizing these shifts and you are adapting your messaging and positioning to cater to who you are actually for. Another thing you can do here if you're selling more D2C or you're selling physical products is to actually look at Amazon. Amazon is another really great example of this, where there may just be shifts in consumer trends from where it may have been something people were typically searching for on Google. They're now starting to move toward Amazon more for these particular product. So there are some great Chrome extensions you can use to this. There's one that we're using here called Keywords Everywhere. So you'll see whenever you type in a keyword, it will actually show you on Amazon what's the approximate monthly searches this gets, as well as being able to see the trend in this keyword over time. We can also expand on this and actually look at similar keywords and see how have these been trending over time. Is it trending up or down? So if you start seeing that you've had a drop in sales for something through your D2C website and you look on here and see that that product has actually increased significantly as a trend in searches for Amazon, that's something that you need to consider. You might need to consider, how do we now address and differentiate ourselves more clearly from all these Amazon products? Or maybe you choose to have a particular product line that is available on Amazon and then have certain products that are only available through your main website channel. These are all things that you need to be considering because they're very real changes that often people just don't think about. Now, another thing you'll want to do here, and I mentioned about the organic traffic earlier in this video, is to actually have a look at the organic traffic you are generating to your website and how that's changed since your drop in sales. So one of the things you might want to do, let's say, for example, we'd noticed a drop in sales from the last 6 months compared to the previous 6 months. What I would do is I would export our highest traffic keyword search terms from Google Search Console, so we can see the pages. I've got this filtered by the most clicks here, so we can export all of these, and then I would look at the previous 6 months to that. And again, you'll want to account for any like seasonal changes here. So maybe you'll just want to look at the kind of same period in the previous year and then export that data and then look comparatively at, has there been certain changes or movements? Have we lost certain keywords that were driving traffic that are no longer driving traffic? Because we've seen this time and time again working with clients, as they say, you know, we don't understand, our organic traffic is going up, but we seem to have been losing sales. And then when we've actually come to analyze the data, what we found is that even though the traffic has gone up, they've actually lost some very high intent commercial search terms, but what they've been gaining for is more general informational search terms that are going through to blog posts that are much more top of funnel, right? So even though the overall traffic has gone up, the actual critical search terms that were driving sales before have actually gone down and they've lost rankings on those. So what that means is that you may then need to revisit your SEO strategy and the kind of keywords you're prioritizing in order to get some of those high intent keywords back that were actually previously driving sales. So this is where just looking at things like your traffic numbers alone isn't necessarily going to be an indication that your sales are just going to grow in correlation with that. You also always need to be thinking about, well, what are we gaining keywords for? What keywords are we ranking for? And then one final thing that you may want to factor in here, and this is going to be especially the case if your advertising budget has remained fairly consistent or you've actually reduced it, is you really want to look at your advertising costs in terms of the CPMs and CPCs. This is something that's going to change over time, and it's always changing. It's changing on different platforms. It's changing depending on how many advertisers are using a platform. So there's always going to be seasonal changes in these. For example, like the Christmas period, the holiday seasons, CPC, CPMs are often at their highest, and then outside of those they dip down slightly. But this is going to vary depending on the industry, who you're trying to target, how competitive your industry is. But these also do change over longer terms as well. So you will want to look at that data. Let's say that 5 years ago you were paying an average £1 or $1 cost per click. But then you look at your average cost per clicks for this year and you find that that's now gone up to £5 or $5, but your advertising budget stayed the same. Well, that makes sense, right? As to why you probably wouldn't only be getting less traffic, but you're also going to be getting less conversions. And these are often, again, things that just go overlooked because they can creep up over time. So, you know, as far as you're concerned as a business, as a marketer, the overall spend has stayed the same, but it might just be that the cost of the platform has been rising. And that might mean that you either need to increase your budget to get the same results, or maybe you need to look at some other advertising platforms, or even just the way you structure your ads to make them much more efficient. Now, at this stage, you've probably seen one or two things in here that you want to dive into a bit deeper. So if you feel like your competitors may be having the edge here and you want to know how to really double down on this and stand out from your competition, I'm going to link to a video here that dives into that in much more detail. Or if you've seen a drop in performance or conversions from a particular marketing channel, or your CPMs or CPCs have been increasing on the channel you're using, check out this video here. I'll see you there.